Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. Praise be to God, Lord of the universe. Have I witnessed it? There's no God but God, and He has no partners. So this sermon is going to be dedicated towards the straight path, the Siratul Mustaqim, and more specifically about trying to understand how easy it is to be diverted. To do that, I need to give you some context, right? And it's going to explain several systems that are used prevalent in any structure, in any system. These systems exist. So I worked as an analyst for a while, and part of the analyst job is for me to improve efficiency of the business, or the bottom-down approach. So there's this thing called Timwoods. Timwoods is just a mnemonic to express how you remove waste from the business. T stands for transport. So if you're transporting a lot of goods, that costs money. So it'd be ideal in one transport, you maximize that transport, reduce the cost of transport. I stands for inventory. If you're sitting on £2 million worth of inventory, that's bad. Unless, of course, your turnover is much greater, and this was the minimum you need to run your business. So there's something that calculates that based on the stock turnover as well, how much you hold in stock versus how much you have in value. M stands for movement. If you take 20 different motions to do one thing, then you're expending more resources than you have. I won't go through all of them, but ultimately my job was to go through this, explain it to the business, and improve the business. Now, part of what happens when you remove fat is that you're now freed of time. The natural concern of the people that are doing these activities is, well, you've just saved 7 hours of my day. Believe this, something like this has happened from our task before. I don't know if I'm going to have a job now, right? Literally, from this activity that you've done, you've maximized efficiency by the degree that I've saved 7 out of the 8 hours that I would have spent to do the thing. And so what you naturally meet is resistance. The people that do this have a natural understanding, look, if this thing is doing it, well, I'm super efficient, then nobody's going to pay me for the overtime that I'm doing this job. Because people are paid for their time, not for their value, right? For example, in TFL, I get paid daily rate. Before that, it was hourly. So I could be incompetent in my job and get paid more or the same as a person who's competent, who takes half that time, right? Most people put value on time than on the quality of the output, right? For example, you ask for a brand or some logo or something. This is coming to the Nike logo, for example. Let's say it took me a day to produce you that brand, everything within it, and it took another person or another company a year. You should value me more than the other person. Instead of paying that person for the time it took, every laborer that took a year to produce it, you should pay me a year plus, because I've saved you a year's worth of marketing, of product management, of all that life cycle. You are able to mobilize now. Now, the whole point of presenting this is that it's showing you the top-down approach. Now, the top management will inherently want to maximize profit. So as soon as I've been able to successfully make these optimizations, the business inherently reduces overhead. They say they won't, but they do. The contractors all of a sudden are no longer needed. The, X amount that they said you're going to get paid for overtime is reduced, so on and so forth. So I was stuck in a pickle for the longest time as someone who was extremely diligent in that particular paradigm. I knew that for every improvement I made, it cost the people that I worked with, right? So I felt disingenuous. As I present a specific solution, they suffered. Present, suffer. And the alternative to the top-down approach is the bottom-up approach, the grassroots approach. The bottom-up approach is that, we all hold hands, we start a business together, each of our voices are valued, and we come together and coalesce the best idea of the next best thing. We're all CEOs here. We're all going to come up with the best idea. And this is what's taken place mostly in modern times with the open source stuff, whether it's GitHub or any number of open source companies. The idea is that everybody can contribute. And therefore, the identity of that product can be everybody's identity. Now, each of these systems have their flaws. The top-down approach, if your CEO cares more about the bottom line than the people that they have or the people that they've worked with, he will, when he gets his stuff, get rid of everyone else. The bottom-up approach means that 100 people will commit to one idea, and no one has a particular direction to say, well, this doesn't align with our identity, this doesn't align with our product. So we have to select which one of these are correct. Now, if you're seeing the parallel here, I'm talking about Quranism. Quranism is the infinite permutation of your religion, right? There's all kinds of Quranists. There's Semitic Quranists, there's Sunni Quranists, there's Quranists, there's a Buddhist Quranist, or any number of things. And the thing that they pivot on, the Quranists, is a specific audio from Rashad. They say that Rashad says, in several instances, he holds up the Quran and he says, we only take from this book, right? Nothing else. If it's not in here, we don't do it. They use that as an argument to say that we should disobey Rashad if it's not in the Quran, right? And so, for example, the argument of insurance, right? The Quran clearly doesn't mention insurance. The term riba is mentioned there, but that's not really insurance. It's a modern term. So from their purview, there's elements in the Quran that allows you to reject it, right? Because the messenger said something and he's saying this is outside of his remit, outside of his paradigm to explain those things. So that's a version of Quranism. And then there's also an audio where Rashad says, if you place your opinion above the opinion of the messenger, all your works are nullified. Those were his verbatim words. If you place your opinion above the opinion of the messenger, all your works are nullified. He expands. He says, why is that? I pray 5 times a day. I do all my siyam. I do my hajj. I pay my zakat. I'm very charitable. I'm very righteous. But in this one instance where I said, but Rashad, I think you're wrong, for example, he says, all your works are nullified. All of them. Right? You could be 45. I don't know how many prayers you can get in up to 45 if you started, fresh young whippersnapper. For 30 years straight, that's about 125,000 units of prayer, gone like that. That's what he said. So you're left with 2 statements, technically both outside the Quran, right? The statement that Rashad says, if it's not in this Quran, we don't follow it, is not in the Quran. The Quran says in 480, if you disobey the messenger, then all your works are nullified. Let me find this first. God willing. Here we go. Whoever obeys the messenger is obeying God. As for those who turn away, we do not send you as their guardian. Right? The word obedience is there. And it's repeated in 459 that your works or your priority is in obedience to the messenger. I'll read this one as well. 459. O you who believe, you shall obey God and you shall obey the messenger. And those in charge among you, if you dispute in any matter, you shall refer it to God and the messenger. If you do believe in God and the last day, this is better for you and provides you with the best solution. Wa ahsanu ta'wila. Ahsan al-hadith. The best hadith is from the Quran. Ahsanu ta'wila. The best solution is in the Quran. And 465, I don't know if I've loaded the verse here, it says basically, never indeed they're not believers unless they come to you to judge among them in their disputes. I found it. 465, here we go. Never indeed by your Lord they are not believers, unless they come to you to judge in their disputes. Then find no hesitation in their hearts whatsoever in accepting your judgment. They must submit a total submission. The point is this, we came back to it, the Siratul Mustaqim. In every decision you make, the Siratul Mustaqim is right in front of you, right? I'm about to make coffee, for example. And in my head, I'm thinking, I don't know if I should spend this amount of money on this, particular business expenditure, or I don't know if it's righteous for me to have this private conference or any number of things, right? In that time, there is an action that is the ultimate, most efficient action to keep you on the straight path. And the action is always one that relies on the most trust in God, right? For example, you have X amount of capital that will deplete. But the people that understand capital and understand how money flows is not about what you have now, is the rate at which it's consumed and reproduced, right? And so if you're calculation is I only have X amount. If I keep using this in the cause of God, let's say you start up a charity, let's say you build a program, whatever it is, you're expending resources, right? You're striving and expending resources in the cause of God. In your mind is a depletion, right? But this is a lacking in understanding in the trust of God. God is telling you these are His resources. And if you understand God, you understand that His resources are undepletable. It's infinite. So the moment you get to a certain point, God just tops it up. I was walking in the park one day with the missus. It's only a few weeks back. And I was kind of in this mindset. I was thinking, right, I'm spending money on this API, on that AI, on this, on this, on this, on this. Ooh, I don't know if I should keep doing this. Maybe I should slow down or whatever, right? The calculations you make on a day-to-day. £1,000 rocked up in my account. Swear down. I looked at it. I was like, where did this come from? 5 years ago, I had a dispute long time with my old from my old place, and the deposit never got settled. It went into this and that and the other, and eventually I only got a small portion of it. For whatever reason, they gave me all of it, right? And I was like, dang, that's nice. I'm going to keep going in this direction, right? Because my trust in God exceeds my trust in myself. And that's paramount. When your trust in God exceeds your trust in yourself, you understand that everything is singing a symphony that God is playing, is running in accordance with His plans. There is no fear. There is no inaction from your part. You're acting in the Siratul Mustaqim. What can I do here now to help this position become stronger? For me, right? Not for you. If it means that talking to you and giving da'wah to you and being kind to you, expressing certain positions is helpful for my soul, I do that, right? It's an altruistic perspective. It may seem selfish, but realistically, that is it. On the day of judgment, you are only concerned for your next. God cuts all ties on that day. When they see the fire, all ties are cut on that day. My son will be my son. None of you will be the relationship that I have with you. On that day, when you're that clearly presented to the finality of all your decisions, right? The crescendo of everything you've ever done in a single moment. Your soul reaps everything that it's ever done into a single payment. It sees that. You're like, okay, you're either stamped with the stamp of disbelief, or realistically, if you're a believer, as Rashad clarified, you're immediately taken to heaven. You don't taste the second death. So God willing, we'll continue in that vein, focusing on the Siratul Mustaqim specifically. There's an interesting presentation with this word of payment that God uses, which I'll express in the second sermon, and use this stage to make yourself realize that every action you take, everything you do, every decision you make is bound by some lace of fear, some lace of, I don't know. And the more you know, the more certain you are. God clarifies, these are the ones with no doubts in their hearts whatsoever, the mu'mins, right? The more your actions are more righteous and therefore more likely to be in the Siratul Mustaqim. Every level of fear, every level of doubt, hesitation, corruption or whatever is outside of the purview of the Siratul Mustaqim, which is the entirety of your focus. The only thing that you should be caring about and having God kind of dominate your mind is that Siratul Mustaqim. Tubulullah. Repent. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ashhadu la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. Praise be to God, Lord of the universe. I bear witness that there's no God but God, and He has no partners. So we mentioned this earlier about the Siratul Mustaqim, and in case it was kind of confusing why I talked about the top-down and bottom-up stuff, is that the whole point of a system that works is that they're both actually top-down. Someone has to be an arbiter of truth. Even if you're, in a community and everyone's chiming in on a specific idea of what the final product should be, someone has to decide what gets launched, what becomes the thing. Someone is the finality of the product. And the difference between, so that was the first pill to swallow, that every system is top-down. even if you're holding hands, singing Kumbaya with everyone, and everyone's their own version of whatever they believe, even that has to have an arbiter of, right, this is going to be the version that gets launched. This is going to be the version that gets released. And the way I want you to see that is the fact that there's two top-down approaches. One is the top-down approach from Satan. Satan's approach is to make you lose in two angles. One is by following the majority. Some ulama, everyone is kind of huddling in that direction. Therefore, I must be right. If all of us are just like herd together and you see one lone wolf in the corner, you're like, oh, he's doomed. God is condemning that directly. In 6116, I think, and the majority are condemned to hell. If you obey the majority, you're condemned to hell. And the reverse is the person that's following their desire. And I had a debate with what I would qualify a Quranist, but he would call himself a Semita. He says that we are to disobey Rashad when he comes with opinions that does not marry with their understanding of the Quran. And the idea is that both of these are top-down approaches. Satan is inspiring and instilling any mannerisms in which you can fail. He doesn't care how you fail, as long as you fail. As long as you refuse God by any degree, he has won. Right? Trying to find the verse. Next one, I think. There we go. I remember you reading this. 7:16. He said, since you have willed that I go astray, I will skulk for them on your straight path. Satan is a proven liar, and so are his constituents. That was the footnote. So he's waiting for you in every corner. Remember when I said you have to make a decision on the Siratul Mustaqim? He's in every other angle, every other decision. He's allowed to be there. God has given him the agency and the control as a Khalifa of this world. Meaning this is his dominion. And in his dominion, he will seed any form of doubt into your heart. He will seed any form of ideas into your heart to the point that you are confused and the truth becomes confounded and conflated with falsehood. And he succeeds whenever he gets you to compromise to any degree. Because that's what happened. In the first creation, the issue wasn't whether God is real. Everybody knows God is real. When you're in front of the Almighty Creator, where no vision can encompass him, when he says to you, prostrate to this new creature of mine, all the angels, the first thing they did was prostrate, except Satan. His arrogance consumed him. So the failure wasn't recognition of the truth. The failure was arrogance, the ego, right? As you've told me before, it's the last domino that falls down. And so in that failure mode, it's evident that it's not just God that you're denying, it's his authority or his omniscience, right? And God in that same verse, 2:30, is saying, I'm placing a Khalifa on earth. And the angels say to God, will you place therein someone who will spread corruption and cause evil and spread blood, basically, while we sanctify and glorify you? And God says, I know what you do not know. The next verse, it continues, and God teaches Adam the names of all things. Rashad explains this as the satellites. All these things are in the future, right? And Adam explains all these names. But before that, God asked the angels, name these things if you are truthful. The angels said, we don't know. And that's the point. You don't know. Right? God knows. Any number of information you have, you reach a limit, you're stuck. You don't have enough resources, algorithm, mathematical degrees, any number of analysis you could do or computation, even if you consume the entire computation of the entire world, will be stuck at a certain point, right? And once you get there, you have to make a choice, a leap of judgment. Do I choose to believe this is correct? Do I choose to believe this is wrong? And so the choice precedes the evidence. Your choice, whatever the choice is the same outcome if you had 200 IQ or 100 IQ. Right? Someone with 200 IQ would look at something Rashad says, and he says insurance is prohibited because it's a game of chance. Right? It's a form of gambling. If you understood insurance to a deep degree, you understand that it is a game of chance. The house is betting against you statistically, not you personally, but they understand statistically the amount of money you have to put in with the amount of money they eventually have to put out based on the risk analysis, they would gain over time. So you might win in one scenario, but this other person would lose. But the totality of the experience is that because they have the upper hand, because they have the numbers, and the favor is against you, their house always wins. So it is a game of chance. It's just written differently. And you're forced to accept them in some ways. Obviously, when it's given to you as a legal requirement, you got to do that. But if they're saying to you, would you like this insurance for this new brand spanking phone that you've got, right, where you can be protected from a screen crack, whatever, a righteous believer with a 200 IQ would say, no, thank you. I'm happy. God has commanded me, or specifically my obedience to the messenger, and by extension, the obedience to the Almighty God requires that I reject this, right? And the 100 IQ, the person that's never done any algebra in their life, oh, Rashad said it's not allowed. Sorry, I can't take it. Their response is identical, right? God has made the test equal because something before the evidence is the decision to accept the evidence. And the Sirat al-Mustaqim requires that you intercept your mind at the moment of failure. I keep seeing things like, sometimes I like drop a cup or something like that. It's not quite a scratch, but it's like, it's made me think, what happened there? And I never used to do that. And now I'm thinking, every time some kind of like weird thing happens, I'm thinking, was I suspicious? Because you get swept away in your mind, right? You're thinking about, oh, this person said this about me. How dare they? Or whatever, right? Whatever thoughts consume you. God, in His mercy, will correct you. And as soon as that happens, your righteous act will be to reflect. I think I was a bit suspicious there. Or maybe I lacked in trusting God. God willing, I'll change that. Right? All it is a reflection. All it is obedience. And that's the game. That's the gambit. Obedience, authority. And this is the parallels between the two paths. You have one person on one end. This is the paradigm I'm in, and it's always been the same issue that I've always had, is someone with the authority, and then me with the technical ability, right? So I believe that I'm right, but this person is telling me, you must not do this. I'll just give a brief example. In TfL, there's something called a principal engineer. Principal engineer has the license to decide ultimately what gets to happen or change on a train. So I decide to change the wheels or some dimension there. And I say, look, Mr. Principal Engineer, I've done half a year's worth of analysis and I'm guaranteeing you this is the best solution, right? You're saving material, safety is not compromised, blah, 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 blah. We should do this. Principal Engineer says no. I was like, why? You can argue. But his position from TfL perspective and realistically the government is immutable. His position is the overriding position of the business. And he might be just calculating, yeah, I think you're right. But ultimately, if you're wrong, the legal consequence of a train, let's say, derailing because you decided to make a change that I signed for, when I'm presented in front of the judge and I'm the chartered engineer, I'm the one with the license, I sign this off, I'm not ready to do that. So he has the authority. And this is what Rashad clarified. He had the authority. If I relay an information to you, I'm saying Rashad, if he relayed an information to you and he was erroneous in his understanding, Jibril told him the age of responsibility is 40, meaning if you die at the age of 39, you'll be saved. And he misunderstood that. And he said, oh, I don't know. And he relayed the wrong information. Your obligation is purely to obey me. On the day of judgment, God will have no excuse against you. None. Because you would say, my Lord, you told me 19 times in the Quran, obey God and obey the messenger. I did. I don't know if it was right. I don't know for sure if insurance is prohibited, but I wasn't going to gamble with my soul. God would have no excuse over you. The Almighty Creator Himself cannot break His covenant because He's the most truthful. And so you're saved. But if you inject your opinion and you say, yeah, my Lord, I know Rashad said that, but, and that is the qualifying failure mode, but. My whole life has been a series of buts, right? Oh, that's true, but. I hear you, but. You just get better at that manipulation, right? I know you're right, but. Well, there's no but if I'm right. And that is the final cascading failure on the day of judgment. But there is no buts in this equation. Either he has the authority of a messenger of the covenant, or he doesn't. If he does, this person is a representative of God. You have never seen anything like this in your life, ever. You go and see President, I don't know, Mr. Putin or something like that, or Trump, right? See how many levels of security, even if you were worthy of seeing him, how many levels of security you have to go through to just be in front of this man. And even then, you're monitored in your actions and mannerisms, and you're unarmed, right? You're completely removed from any possible threat. And you can say a few things, and then you got to recede. Right? You got to show him the level of respect that he deserves. This is a president or an authority of a nation. The messenger of the covenant is a president or an authority of the entirety of this universe. I'm not saying Earth. God created the universe for this test. If there was one redeemable submitter in the balance of all humanity, God, in his infinite mercy, would save that one submitter. Right? We failed the test. We chose to be here. And so you have to recognize it's either that or not. Either he has the authority or he doesn't. If he does, my opinion is immaterial. I could spend 30 years studying insurance and disagreeing with Rashad, and I'd still be going to hell. Or I could spend 5 minutes looking at that saying, yeah, fine. I just won't take insurance the next time it comes up, and I'd be going to heaven. So the choice is evident. It requires the internal desire to go to the straight path. God willing, I'll read some of the other verses on the straight path, and then we'll end the sermon there. This is in chapter 6, 153. This is my path, a straight one. You shall follow it and do not follow any other paths, lest they divert you from his path, capital H, God. These are his commandments to you, that you may be saved. And again, this is Satan trying to inject his position. This is after the verse I read before in 7:16. In 7:17, Satan is saying, I will come to them from before them, from behind them, from their right, from their left, and you will find that most of them are unappreciative. Most. There's 6 of us here. Most of us are unappreciative, per this account. Obviously, it's probably the majority of humanity at large. Finally, 40-52. Thus, we inspired to you a revelation proclaiming our commandments. You had no idea about the scripture or faith, yet we made this a beacon to guide whomever we choose from among our servants. Surely you guide in a straight path. That again, choose, right? Whomever we choose. So God also has agency and choice. God is choosing out of the derelict, scavenged, criminal, decrepit few. He may decide, right, this one is redeemable, that one is redeemable. And your choice is to make the same action, to make the same choice. You don't stick on the straight path. Akim Salah.